Hi all. Title of this newsletter, which you can read along with, the link is supplied in the comments on my website. Title is 2022 Coming Attractions, Choosing a Belief System that Actually Works for You. It starts with a quote by Winston Churchill. Quote, "True genius resides in the capacity for evaluation of uncertain, hazardous, and conflicting information." Unquote. Here we go. Dear one, every year around Thanksgiving, I spontaneously receive channel downloads for my annual Coming Attractions newsletter, which I send out sometime in December usually. But this year, on the day I sent out my Labor Day newsletter, the 2022 info relentlessly downloaded over several hours. So this bulletin is especially hot off the galactic wire with a new kind of urgency and a longer lead time to help us prepare to make the absolute most of our lives going forward. And just like with the last two newsletters on hungry ghosts and healthy boundaries, when these downloads came through, with me typing just as fast as I could, my response was like, "Oh my God, why didn't I think to write about these important topics before now?" Well, timing is everything, so here it is. One of the most harmful things we can do is to cling to a worn-out belief system that has become too tight a fit to allow us to be free to grow and expand our range of being. If our belief system about ourselves and reality is ego-based rather than soul-centered, it limits our conscious evolution. And not only does it place a ceiling on our potentials for awakening, it also imposes a dark, fearful screen over our perceptions of who we are, which dims our light and causes our worldview to become extremely distorted. This version of quote-unquote the truth then colors all of our interactions with others and life itself, and not in our favor. Most of us are not doing this consciously, but rather the majority of our beliefs are running a program in our subconscious which comes from unresolved past life experiences as well as recurrences of the same themes in this life. And while these beliefs may have been formed as legitimate reactions at the time, they may no longer serve our highest good as they keep us in an infinite karmic PTSD loop of diminishing returns until we consciously choose to change this pattern. To prepare for what is to come in 2022 and beyond, it behooves us to step up our game and release and dissolve limiting beliefs about ourselves and reality and cultivate a new philosophy of life that gives us more room to heal and grow, as that is what we took incarnation for after all. In other words, as the last few years have certainly shown us, holding on to an out-of-date software program, such as a karmic belief or identity, to run our internal operating system creates a downward spiral which only brings us more and more glitches, disappointments, and disconnects in our relationship with ourselves, our bodies, and with all of life. Since the Earth is a relative plane of existence, any assumptions about reality in 3D are going to be based on relative truths that are subject to flux and change as we're living in an ephemeral dimension. And ultimately, the only absolute truth is one that is unchanging under all conditions. One thing is for sure, we do have the absolute power to choose a philosophy of life and a belief system that serves us in a positive way, rather than clinging to the same old karmic, religious, and/or family of origin storyline. How do you know if your belief system is actually working for you? Here's the test. Look around at your life right now, and if you're not at peace with what is, it's more than time to upgrade your internal operating system. This test doesn't mean we're not allowed to still have preferences about how we'd like our life to be, but rather that we're ready to let go of clinging to our attachments to preferred outcomes at the expense of our peace of mind in the now. This then gets us back on track with the ever-accelerating learning curve of becoming co-creators in the Earth game, also known as Leela, aka divine or cosmic play in the Vedic tradition. And there's a link to go to my philosophy page on my website, which is all about Leela. A quote by Albert Einstein, quote, "Everything is energy and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want and you cannot help but get that reality. This is not philosophy, this is physics," unquote. Here are some foundational nuggets from my ever-evolving metaphysical philosophy / belief system. Holding the faith that everything is unfolding perfectly in the flow of the divine plan for each of us for karmic healing and soul growth, but definitely not to fulfill ego desires or to generate only positive emotions. Aligning my personal will with divine will and going for the healing and growth in any situation, no matter how much of an FGO, fucking growth opportunity it appears to be, allows me to go with the flow of life without resistance, which only causes suffering. Cultivating a taste for the clean, sharp growing pain which comes automatically with any of life's challenges, also known as the spiritual resistance training of life, which pushes at me to make me stronger so I can own my innate power, and allows me to cultivate joy in being in this dance of Leela. The flow of life is not under my control. My true power lies in how I choose to respond and move with it, which now includes embracing ever-escalating divine orderly chaos. And if I choose to enjoy the ride, I'll have no regrets later. If I always maintain the witnessing perspective, it allows me to never assume anything or take anything personally, no matter what is going on. Then I can enjoy this precious human incarnation with all its wonder and mystery, as no lesser circumstances in any other dimension could ever give me. Karmically speaking, it's the only game in town. If the above makes you scratch your head more than nodding it, this might be a good time to check out or review the timeless Seth books, especially The Nature of Personal Reality, to help make the most of this time to more quickly manifest our dreams, as reality is becoming more psychically pliable due to the quickening in a very 3D corporeal way. If you're not familiar with the Seth books, a good introductory overview is a Seth reader. In the West, the most common and also most deadly limiting beliefs aren't about ourselves. The most common and also most deadly limiting beliefs about ourselves are a combination of the quote-unquote if-onlys, which is another way of saying comparing what you don't have with what other people do have, combined with beliefs about unworthiness and low self-esteem. In fact, feelings and thoughts of not being worthy of love and or abundance on any level are such a decidedly Western phenomenon that when the Dalai Lama was first informed about what a psychological problem self-worth issues are in the West, he actually asked, "What is this? This is unheard of in the East." In addition, the most harmful limiting belief structure in terms of our view of reality has to do with projecting outward one's unowned and unintegrated shadow or dark side into scary fantasies of alien invasion or government conspiracies to take us over and control us, as just two examples. The latest manifestation of this dangerous nonsense is a combo of QAnon believers, COVID deniers, and the anti-vaxxer movement, all hypnotized, mostly through an inundation of false truths via social media, into believing that secret quote-unquote dark powers are using the vehicle of a life-saving vaccine as a means to control our bodies, minds, and or souls. Oy. I've always been aware of a subset of clients who are prone to conspiracy theories, mostly fueled by feelings of powerlessness derived from karmic and childhood trauma still reverberating in their emotional and psychic bodies. This then creates the ripple effect of feeling out of control of their personal reality, not realizing that their uncooked karmic PTSD is creating a mere external reality based on fear in an infinite loop. The only way to break this fear-based loop is to do the inner work to dissolve past traumatic experiences and the limiting beliefs attached to them so that they can no longer act as the template for future probabilities. Then we can own the higher truth of each of our divine birthrights of personal and divine power as we integrate and transmute our dark sides through the heart with a commitment of right use of power. So if you're truly sick and tired of living with a victim identity and a worldview that is epitomized by your own powerlessness over quote-unquote dark forces, please feel free to choose to do the inner work necessary to upgrade your internal belief structure operating system. To start, please read on my website, in the writing section, Owning Our Inner Pluto Before It Eats Us for Lunch. This type of limiting belief structure and the harm it does really hit home for me on a deeper level last year while doing a reading for a new client in the UK who was scared to death by the darkness and quote-unquote evil in the world and felt unconditionally powerless over it affecting her adversely. She was a submissive follower of a spiritual teacher who was a rabid, I mean really rabid, advocate of QAnon, Trumpism, and the anti-vax movement for political reasons disguised as spiritual, quote-unquote, truth. When I pointed out to her that it was possible to view the world through a lens that was much lighter and more joyful, her response, with a deep sigh of despair, was, quote-unquote, if only that were true. Enough said. For more on this, there's a link to On Spiritual Teachers, Buyer Be Aware, in the writing section on my website. We're continually tested in our judgments of other people's belief systems, regardless of whether they're based on philosophies which are religious, spiritual, New Age, or whatever. All belief systems are, from a higher perspective, merely mental constructs, as is the ego, which we use to help us function in the earth game by giving us some illusion of control, by categorizing the infinite. Ha! Consequently, whether you buy into 1, the Christian view of heaven, hell, and purgatory, 2, the Tibetan Buddhism view of bardos and nirvana, 3, the Islamic view of paradise, the number of virgins for men is open to debate, 4, the Vedic view of planes of consciousness called lokas, 5, the Taoist view of 8 bodies of consciousness, 6, the New Age view of angels, aliens, and other dimensions, as well as the chakra system reinterpreted literally instead of metaphorically. All of the above list, and any other belief systems you can think of, are ultimately just mental constructs. One could say the universe is a mental construct. Therefore, one of the lessons to integrate now is to be able to witness everyone's philosophical, religious, and/or spiritual beliefs from a perspective of non-judgment, as well as compassion, especially for those whose extreme fundamentalist ideas come from a place of such ignorance and fear that they're incapable of being open to anyone else's view. There's a lot of that going around. So how are you doing with the above ongoing consciousness expanding test? Here are some pertinent quotes to help. From the Dalai Lama, quote, fundamentalism is terrifying because it is based purely on emotion rather than intelligence. It prevents followers from thinking as individuals and about the good of the world. So that's this very true fundamentalism as expressed through the anti-vaccination movement with the COVID vaccine. Prevents followers from thinking as individuals and about the good of the world. That's the Dalai Lama on fundamentalist belief systems. Next quote is from Steven Pinker's new book on rationality, what it is, why it seems scarce, and why it matters. And the quote is, we are inundated with fake news, medical quackery, and paranormal woo-woo, and post-truth rhetoric. So what's the deal with our species? Why is there so much rationality inequality? It's a great quote. And finally, this one made me really smile, by Albert Einstein. Quote, 2 things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not sure about the universe, unquote. Ha, 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 ha. It's useful to keep in mind that we're only on the threshold of the next great age in the sign of Aquarius, which will last for over 2,000 years, and that the continuous unrelenting acceleration of planetary, galactic, and cosmic higher frequency energies bombarding us, which I call the quickening, while necessary to kickstart this next stage in the evolution of human consciousness, is also playing havoc with all levels of our bodies, from the psychic to the physical. We are all evolutionary guinea pigs in the vanguard of this new age. I've been writing about the quickening since the 90s, but in the last few years we've been experiencing an extraordinary, ever-increasing surge of these higher frequency waves inundating the Earth. The last time I wrote about the quickening at length was as it entered Phase 3 in my annual Coming Attractions newsletter for 2019, which was titled, believe it or not, How to Be in Paradise During a Cosmic Flu Pandemic. And I remember looking up the word pandemic in 2019 to make sure, when I was talking about the cosmic flu caused by the quickening, that it was the right word, and it certainly was. In the last few years, if you've been feeling more easily exhausted, destabilized, ungrounded, and downright dizzy, there's a lot of dizziness going around, it means that you're psychically sensitive enough to be experiencing some of the brand new special effects of the quickening, now escalating into Phase 4, in which we're on the receiving end of the maximum speed of vibrational power that human beings have ever had to contend with to date. The quickening is affecting everyone, but for those of us who are psychically open, it can be especially uncomfortable, even though the ultimate outcome is positive. And that is the ability to handle more juice with an expanded consciousness of being. In the meantime, we may feel as if we have what I call the cosmic flu. This is a confluence of symptoms that many finely tuned souls have been experiencing cyclically for decades, including me. The main symptoms can be combinations of fatigue, body aches, joint pain, structural instability, nervousness, free-floating anxiety, aka metaphysical angst, restless sleep, overactive dream states, brain fog, and feelings that the ego identity is disintegrating. And I believe in the 2019 pandemic newsletter, I did mention that many what they call idiopathic diseases that have arisen, Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue, and others of that ilk, have the same symptoms of what I call the cosmic flu caused by the quickening of energies. But now, as we are in phase 4, since the pandemic started, the energies flooding us are not just vertical anymore, but horizontal as well. Therefore, we're being hit simultaneously by the denser cumulative energies of the mass consciousness and the karma of the world. The 1-2 punch of this energetic blitzkrieg can leave us feeling even more unsteady, with episodes of vertigo and short-term memory loss, as we're getting knocked out of linear space and time on a daily basis. Haha. It's one reason I chose to send the newsletter when daylight savings time ended, because that's a moment when we turn our clocks back, when we're aware of the arbitrary nature of linear time. So if you're reading this or listening to this today, on the daylight savings time change, it'll help you be in the gap of eternal nature and timelessness more. So now we're all being affected by these accelerating frequencies, both vertically and horizontally, dependent on our level of conscious soul evolution. One might ask, which came first, the cosmic flu vertically or the COVID-19 pandemic horizontally? Well, the answer is obvious to those of us on spiritual paths of awakening. It's always an inside job first. This means that the quickening has gone from just manifesting inside of us as the cosmic flu to somatizing outward into the worldwide pandemic we're all being affected by. This gives us an idea of just how potent these manifesting co-creative energies are in bringing us all together on the planet as we evolve towards unity consciousness, aka one being with billions of faces, as I like to call it. For with the global pandemic and the 24/7 news cycle, we all have mass consciousness awareness like never before of our common problem and a common cure. We're all in this together regardless of any arbitrary external boundaries or divisions of race, country, class, or religious beliefs. In other words, we, as the head of the WHO said in reference to the global distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine, quote, "Nobody is safe until everybody is safe," unquote. In closing, the most life-changing major astrological transits for 2022 and beyond are supporting the need for us to upgrade our internal operating systems and belief system software to affect the massed tone in a ripple effect. No surprise there. We kick off with a potent new moon total eclipse in philosophical Sagittarius on December 4th, 2021. Which coincides with the last month in which the karmic south node is still in Sag before it moves into Scorpio on January 20th, 2022. This total eclipse with the south node sets the tone for the first half of 2022, and beyond is a time when reviewing our philosophy of life and belief systems and refining both to a higher level of perspective is paramount if we want to thrive for the remainder of our incarnations in this present age. As whether we are in an upward spiral of evolution or a downward cycle of devolution, we can be sure that this spiraling process will continue to pick up speed. Next, beginning on February 20th, 2022, the historic Pluto Return of the United States commences for the first time since the country's birth on July 4th, 1776. This is huge for Americans, but obviously affecting all of us globally as well, as transformer Pluto, epitomized by Shiva the Destroyer and Kali the Devourer, operates through cycles of death and rebirth. Again, it would be good to read my article on Pluto in the writing section. My take on this transit is certainly not as dire as some astrologers are putting out there, as my belief system is obviously not as negative and dark as theirs. I operate more from a view of the earth plane as one governed by polarity of light and dark, simultaneously interwoven into the fabric of all that is, as it expressed in 3D. My read is that what no longer serves the USA structurally, as this Pluto return is at 27 degrees of structure ruling Capricorn, will slowly but inexorably fall away. So, what no longer serves the U.S. structurally will slowly but inexorably fall away, such as the dysfunctional health insurance industry, the coal industry, etc. In their place, there will continue to be a rebirthing process of new laws and structures created that actually serve the people of this country and support the caretaking of Gaia, the earth as a living being. As Pluto moves into idealistic Aquarius on March 23, 2023, for a 20-year sojourn, these energies will slowly transform our higher minds and the ever-evolving mass consciousness belief structure, so that our attachment to feeding off others and the planet like hungry ghosts, as our modus operandi, our MO, will slowly but inexorably die. Instead, we will see the USA progressing over the next 20-plus years into more of a Northern European model of social democracy, where the care and feeding of all citizens is placed before the old system of corporate profits or the military-industrial complex being fed first. Then, by the time Pluto moves into spiritually oriented and humanity-loving Pisces in 2043, we will be able to look back at 2022 as a pivotal year in the rebirth and reboot of the USA, being more aligned with its founding principles on a higher level. During this Plutonian process, the mantle of the USA as the #1 global power player will most probably be lost, at least in the short run, as materialistic and mercenary China takes over that role. But on the whole, this Pluto return may just give us the perfect metamorphosizing planetary energies to move the USA into a new paradigm and model globally to support the evolution of human consciousness aligned with the heart of the world. Adding to this theme, the other major transit of 2022 is a rare conjunction not seen since 1856 of spiritual Neptune and abundant Jupiter conjuncting in humanity-loving Pisces on April 12, 2022. These energies will support an elevation of our personal belief system and philosophy of life to one that is more heart-centered, with the compassionate tone expressed by the Bodhisattva vow, which is, suffering beings are numberless, I vow to liberate them all. I vow to liberate them all. Attachment is inexhaustible, I vow to release it all. The gates to truth are numberless, I vow to master them all. The way of awakening is supreme, I vow to realize it. Next, we have karmic teacher Saturn finishing his transit. Next, we have karmic teacher Saturn finishing his transit in freedom-loving Aquarius through March 2023, giving us the opportunity to review any karmic belief ruts we've fallen into that inhibit our or anyone else's freedom of expression. Compassion for ourselves and others rather than judgment is the key to the high road here. And finally, trickster of awakening Uranus continues shaking things up to wake us up through April 2026, as he is just approaching his 7-year midpoint this spring in his transit of earthy, security, safety, and comfort-loving Taurus. One of the purposes of this transit is to make external reality so unstable, it quote-unquote encourages us to do the inner work to become internally stable and grounded. For more, there's a link to my Taoist practices, MP3s, for standing Qigong and a sitting practice. As the North Node of Destiny moves into Taurus on January 20th, 2022, and conjuncts Uranus in the summer, we can expect the roller coaster of life to speed up with more ups and downs, twists and turns than we've had to date in this 7-year cycle. Consequently, make sure your seatbelts stay securely fastened, as unpredictable disruptions, major and minor, will continue to be kicked up a notch as our new normal with this ongoing transit. For more, there's a link to all your stagnant comfort zones are going, gone, where I write about the Uranus and Taurus 7-year transit that we're at the midpoint of. And then a quote about chaos by one of my favorite thinkers, Michael Crichton. A quote, "Only at the edge of chaos can complex systems flourish," unquote. So, with divine orderly chaos reigning supreme, I'm reminded of a quote by Ram Dass, quote, "Wise beings can be peaceful in the midst of chaos, experiencing delight in the changing play of forms," unquote. So I'm wishing us all some of that. While we may have no more illusions of control over external events and our personal and racial karma unfolding, we do have absolute control over appreciating everything we have to be grateful for in our life, which means maintaining a glass half full perspective under all conditions. A human incarnation is like the ultimate multi-dimensional roller coaster ride, and no matter how circuitous and death-defying it may feel, it always ultimately leads to the same destination. We get to drop our bodies without losing our higher minds. And not only is physical death absolutely safe, which is a quote from Ram Dass, which I realized watching a video of Ram Dass that he got it from the channel Emmanuel many years ago, that physical death is absolutely safe. So I'm borrowing Ram Dass's borrowing of Emmanuel. It's also the only thing in life that's absolutely certain. Physical death, that is. That being said, why do we all waste so much of our precious time worrying when we could be fully savoring each moment's potential for awakening and expanding our consciousness in the ocean of being? Wishing us all a perspective screen reboot with equanimity and joy for all that is, in the flow, of course. And I sign off with a quote by Lao Tzu, "Be careful what you water your dreams with. Water them with worry and fear, and you will produce weeds that choke the life from your dream. Water them with optimism and solutions, and you will cultivate success," unquote.